Hello ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Waples here, and today our topic is the Adams administration. We'll explore the highs and lows of our first declared Federalist president, and as a result of this video lecture, you should be able to identify the historical context as well as the results of the XYZ Affair and the Alien and Sedition Acts. Let's get started. John Adams served as vice president under George Washington. However, after Washington stepped down after his historic 2 terms, Adams became the first president to be a member of the Federalist Party. He narrowly defeated Thomas Jefferson in the election of 1796, and when I say narrowly, I mean by a mere 8 votes in the Electoral College.
Eat my dust, TJ.
It's important to note that Adams begins his presidency during a precarious time in world history. The French Revolution's over, however, Napoleon Bonaparte has established himself as a formidable force in the European stage. Britain and France are now officially at war, and although Washington managed to stay neutral during his presidency, tensions have escalated during Adams's presidency. Britain and the US make a trade deal which angers the French. In return, the French respond by impressing American merchant ships, and by impress, I don't mean dazzling us with their fancy uniforms. Now, in this context, impress means to take over another nation's ships and force its sailors to work for your government. It is one of the biggest slaps in the face a nation can do to another because it basically denies the fact that it recognizes that other nation as a sovereign nation in the first place. Naturally, this practice of impressment cannot stand, and so Adams sends a delegation of 3 men over to France to smooth over relations and possibly make a treaty. However, once there, the French refuse to meet them for several weeks. Several weeks later. Finally, the French foreign minister does send 3 agents to talk to them, but he demands a hefty bribe in order to meet in the first place. Now, these delegates are indignant. In fact, Pinckney responds with, no, not a 6pence. Saucy words from the young ambassador. In the end, Adams refuses to meet the French terms, and when Congress asks for a transcript of the incident, Adams hands them one which dubs the agents X, Y, and Z, hence the XYZ Affair. Ultimately, an undeclared naval war between the US and France broke out, which lasted until the year 1800. As for the effects of the XYZ Affair, John Adams' popularity soared. The people respected the fact that he stood up to the French, and as a result, he got swag. Unfortunately, this marks the high water point in the Adams administration, as the rest of his 1 term was taken over by rampant paranoia of French spies trying to take down the country from within. And so begins the story of the Alien and Sedition Acts. The United States felt threatened by a war with France. Since the French Revolution, thousands of French had fled to the US. The US government became concerned about their loyalties. And so Congress passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, designed to give power to the federal government to deal with suspicious persons, such as foreign nationals. On paper, the Alien and Sedition Acts seem like a great way to keep America safe. However, the way they were used is what really turned people against the Federalists. The Alien Acts, in particular, made it easier to deport non-citizens deemed a threat to national security. This greatly increased the power of the president, and was often used to discriminate against French sympathizers, which tended to be Democratic Republicans. The Sedition Acts, on the other hand, gave the president the power to define treasonous activity himself, which made it much easier to arrest someone for criticizing the government. Now, it just so happens that all persons charged were Democratic Republicans criticizing Federalists. The Democratic Republicans did not take this line down. In fact, Jefferson and Madison helped pass the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions in state legislatures. These resolutions said that states could claim the right to nullify or ignore federal acts that those states view as unconstitutional. The problem is that this is in direct violation of the Constitution's Supremacy Clause. Fortunately for these individuals in charge at this point in time, both of these laws expired shortly after they were made, which means there was no constitutional crisis in the long run. In terms of long-standing effects of the Alien and Sedition Acts, John Adams and the Federalists became wildly unpopular in the political sphere, and this heavily contributed to John Adams' defeat in the election of 1800. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the rise and fall of John Adams as President of the United States. I hope you caught some important themes there. As a Federalist, John Adams' goal was to increase the power of the federal government, and also, you may have noticed in times of duress, impending crisis, potential war with France, civil liberties are often restricted, as they will be in other times of crisis and war throughout this course. I hope you enjoyed this video lecture. I hope you learned a bit about the XYZ Affair and the Alien and Sedition Acts, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great night.